What's up? Juno here. And I've just been really busy and I haven't really had time to sit down and actually film a video because for me, I like to try and cut out the ums and ahs in my videos that I make, or I've been trying to do that in recent videos, although some have gone out without any edits. But for me, when I'm doing that for a YouTube video, that also is kind of like what I do for work professionally. And when I get home from doing that for anywhere from 8 to 12 hours in a day, sometimes even more, I don't really want to do that. So that's also one of the reasons why my video output has kind of gone down a little bit. But in the past week, I've had one major thing that has happened to me that has kind of put a kink in my daily routine, and I'm going to explain that to you here in a minute. Now, in the past week or so, I've driven a plethora of vehicles. And I am a car fan. I love cars. I follow automobile websites on a daily basis. I check them for updates and stuff like that. Some of my favorite websites for auto news are Autoblog and jalopnik.com. They're very up-to-date and very good in posting new auto news. I also follow tech blogs and stuff like that and other websites, but I have some go-to websites that I check a few times throughout the day for various news bits and stuff like that, in addition to regular news and other things. I'm a big gadget fanatic and I'm also a big, huge car fan. And in the past week, I've driven about 7 different vehicles, and I'll list them off for you here in a minute, but I'm the type of person who enjoys driving when I'm actually moving. Now, unfortunately for me, I spend a lot of time in my car, but it's not because I have a very long commute. I mean, my commute's about 25 miles from my house, so it may be longer than average for a lot of people. I think I have the longest commute out of anyone in my immediate household where I live currently, and I think in my general family household, my commute is also longer than any of theirs. But because I enjoy driving, I drive a vehicle that I think handles very well and is pretty well balanced, and even though I've had it for about 7 years and put over 100,000 miles on it, it still feels tight as a drum, and I fucking love my car. It is my transportation, my means of transportation. I have a second car, but unfortunately, where I currently live, I can't store it where I'm at because, I don't have a driveway or anything like that. And there's parking restrictions where I live at night, so it becomes, I have it in storage about 500 miles away from where I live. I'd love to bring it here, but I just can't. So, an unfortunate thing happened to me last week, and that is I got in a minor car accident. There were no injuries, damage was minimal, but the thing that happened was, because of the accident, my car was not really drivable. I was able to drive it home from the accident due to the fact that it was about 3 blocks from my house. I was literally driving home from work and this happened. So I basically drove it here, parked it in my garage, and just left it there until the adjuster came out to take a look at it. And because of this, and because of my commute, I had to quickly find a rental car to get to work the next morning. And lucky for me is, in the city I live in, I live off a fairly main road, and about a mile and a half away from where I live, there are rental car places, so it was just a quick walk down the street to find a rental car, but that was a whole task in itself, and I'll get into that in detail here in a minute. So, yeah, the adjuster came out, checked it out, and I had my car towed to a body shop, and it's getting fixed, and it actually may be fixed faster than anticipated, because I guess the damage was fairly light. It was mostly just some body panels, it wasn't that big of a deal. And the car was still kind of drivable, so it wasn't that, it wasn't like it was totaled or anything like that. So I got that squared away. Now, on the day after the accident, I went to go try and find a rental car. It was a little bit harder than I anticipated. I woke up bright and early, and I started walking down there. I hit Hertz first. And I waited in line for about 10 minutes, and then they said, oh, well, all of our cars are reserved. So I said, okay, well, I guess I gotta go down to the next place. And so I went down to Enterprise. And unfortunately for me, I walk past their lot as I'm walking up to the office, and I see, oh shit, I may be in trouble here, because all they had on their lot, or at least what I saw immediately, was about 70 Econoline 15-passenger vans And then there were a couple other small cars around, and there were also some SUVs parked in the back. Now, unfortunately, since I didn't have a reservation and all they had available on the lot were gigantic SUVs, and I had to rent a 2011 Dodge Durango. And while most people say, oh, well, why is that a problem? Well, it's not necessarily there's a problem with the car. One thing, I didn't like how much I was paying per day. It was outrageous, and that really pissed me off. But another thing was where I work, there's a parking garage. I have a parking pass, I get to park in there. But it has a very low clearance. Like, we're talking 6'3" as a clearance. So basically about 3 inches taller than how tall I am. I'm about 6 feet tall was the clearance. I'm like, you know, I need something that's going to be fairly low. But I had a choice between a Dodge Durango and a Buick Enclave. They're the same size, the same height, everything. So I went for the Durango, and I had it for 2 days, and it was a lot of fucking money. And the problem I had with the car was I couldn't see out of it. The fucking headrests were too goddamn big. The windows were too goddamn low. Now, I drive a car with very dark tinted windows, so I'm used to, you know, dark windows and stuff like that. That's not the issue. It's the design of the damn thing. I couldn't see out of the fucking thing. But I didn't have any problems ultimately, and at least the car had a backup camera, which really helped when I was trying to get in and out of the fucking parking structure of where I work. So yeah, I had that, and then I was going out of town last weekend, and so I just needed it for a couple days to get to work, and then I dropped it off and got a ride to the airport, went away. Now, when I was away, I drove a variety of different vehicles. I drove a 2000 Toyota Land Cruiser, I drove a 2000 BMW 323 Ci convertible, I drove a 2006 Mini Cooper S, and I also drove a 2007 BMW 650i. And all of these cars are very, you know, they do their job well. Take, for example, the BMWs. They're great handling cars. The 323 I was driving was a 5-speed. It was a joy to drive, and it had a convertible top. I was able to drive home at night, top down. It was beautiful. I love that car. And my friend was the one who owned the Mini Cooper, and I just love Mini Coopers because they drive like, it's like a go-kart for the road. And his is a supercharged one that's been tweaked a little bit, so it's putting out a little bit more horsepower, and it sticks to the road very nice. It's a 6-speed manual. It's fucking phenomenal. I love driving stick shift cars when the roads are open and, you know, you can just kind of gun it and just go. And then I have a family member who owns the BMW 650, and that thing is just like brute force. It's got a nice big V8, and it makes a nice grunty noise when you step on the accelerator and stuff like that, and it handles very nicely, and it's got all sorts of gizmos and gadgets in it. It's a great fucking car. But when I got back into town, I had about 14 hours, and if you follow me on Twitter, I tweeted, I've got 14 hours, no car. And that was probably the most painful 14 hours I think I've ever had to endure because, well, when I got back in town, I had no food in my house. I had nothing. I couldn't go anywhere. I was stuck from about 5 p.m. till 7:30 in the morning the next day. So that was kind of difficult. So on Monday morning, I went down to the rental car place. My insurance company covers a rental car for a certain amount for a couple, you know, for a duration of a certain period of time. They'll reimburse me for the expense of having a rental car, which is great. So I go down there, and they also set up a reservation for me, so I didn't have to worry about that. I just literally had to go down there, show them my ID, give them a credit card, and sign a piece of paper. That's basically all I had to do. So I get down there, and they say, okay, well, we've got a car for you, blah, blah, blah. It just needs about a half hour, 45 minutes to be washed and vacuumed. Well, I was already about 25 minutes late in getting into work, and because my commute is so fucking awful, it takes me quite a while to drive these 25 miles. I mean, it's taken me, it ranges anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours, like it took me today to get to work. So it just depends, and I can't predict it. So I go out there, and they say, okay, we've got a Dodge Caliber for you. And when I heard that, I was like, ah, not another fucking Dodge. I really am not a fan of American cars. And I had my friend who has the Mini Cooper actually had it in the shop to get some work done on it, and he had to rent a car, and they gave him a Dodge Caliber, and he was telling me how awful it was. And, of course, they gave me one. And as I was walking out to it, I said, you know what, I can't wait for it to be washed and vacuumed. I just need it now. I need to get to where I was going. And someone pulled up in a brand new Fiat 500. And I was like, oh, I mean, this is a small car. How much is that? And it was about double what the fucking piece of shit Caliber was. And this car is probably, it was designed, or at least I have a theory that it was designed from the beginning to be a rental car. It is the most dreary place to be. Not to mention, again, with the fucking headrests, can't see out of the back. It's got very thick C-pillars in the back, can't see blind spots. It has a very low roof line. I mean, I'm tall. I'm at least 6 feet tall. I sit in the thing and the front of the windshield is sloped. It is awful. But the biggest fucking problem, and I've never driven a car with one of these, was the transmission. Now, I know how to drive a manual transmission. My personal car, my Acura TSX, is not a manual, it is an automatic, but I know how to. I just don't know if I'd want to live with one every single day. But this car is an automatic, but it has a CVT transmission. And what a CVT transmission is, it stands for continuously variable transmission, meaning basically it has one gear. One gear. You step on the fucking accelerator and it just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes, and then once you get up to a certain speed, or where the speed you want to get to, then it drops back down. It is awful. It is horrible. I will never own a car with one of these transmissions. It's awful. It is so bad. I mean, it got to a point, like, it happened to be raining when I was going to work this morning, or the morning after I'm filming this, and that car was probably the most fidgety car I've ever driven in the wet. And another thing that was extremely annoying about it was the transmission was louder than the fucking engine in the damn thing. The transmission was louder than the engine. Whoever thought putting a CVT transmission in a car was a good idea, they just need to be slapped, because it is awful. It ruins the driving experience. Oh, and the suspension in that thing just feels like it's about to fall apart. I mean, this car is not that old. It's a 2010. It has 30,000 miles on it, and it just feels just awful. It is bad. If you ever need to rent a car, if they offer you a Dodge Caliber, ask for something else. Get something with proper gears in its transmission. It is just horrible. I'm glad that I think Dodge is going to discontinue the damn thing, because there is nothing redeeming about it. It is really that bad. And if you follow me on Twitter, you may be seeing some posts that I've done that are just complaining about the damn thing, because every single time I get into it, I just dread it. It is awful. It is bad. At least it's easier to park, but this proves to me that American car companies, or at least Dodge, can't really make a decent car to save their life. Now, that may be a little harsh on them, but they really need to work on their visibility. I've had 2 cars in less than a week that were both Dodges, and I've had visibility issues with both of them. Hell, you know what? I would rather drive my 17-year-old Ford Bronco than drive this thing. Even though it pulls to one side, and you know, it's not in its best condition or anything like that, and it has its little idiosyncrasies and stuff like that. You gotta, you know, treat it gently. You can't slam on it. It has a dicky rear end and stuff like that. But I know how to drive it. And, you know, it's a perfect balance. But fuck, this thing is awful. Have you ever had a rental car, or have to drive a car, or owned a car that was just atrociously bad? I would love to hear about it in the comments, or in a video response, or anything like that, because I'm just miserable. I cannot wait for my car to be back in my possession. But the good news is the repairs are getting done faster than anticipated. They told me I might be without it for 2 weeks. Well, at the time of filming this video, I was quoted the 31st of October getting it back, and I actually talked to them today because I wanted to discuss something with them, and they said it may be done by the end of the week, which would be great, because I want to get rid of this fucking car. I really fucking do. It is really that bad. But yeah, this is just a little rant, a little outside of what I normally cover in videos and stuff like that. Yeah, anyway. Do your part. Blaspheme daily.